like it. You see that? Except for
yeah, speaking of prunes, look at this penis wrinkle. Live from his personal sauna. All I can think about is the sweat dripping off of his nose right now. How did Trump even win the folding elections? Well, let me tell you about this thing called liberalism. It is the enabler of fascism. You will not get Donald Trump without 8 years of Obama. Do not get another 4 years of Trump without 4 years of Biden.
You arrived here with a big victory, getting Idon Alexander out, working directly with Hamas, the last remaining American. Do you think the Israelis and Bibi Netanyahu can get his hostages out?
I don't know. We're going to find out pretty soon. We're going to know pretty soon. They're not in good shape.
You know, they have the same conversations month after month after month after month. How many months have we been talking about hostages? Ever since October 23, right? I mean, this situation could have been solved. You know, they fake as if they can't do anything, or it's very complicated. You know, we know that when the United States or Israel wants something done, it gets done.
Is there a message
I don't know. I didn't ask them about that. I thought it was the right thing to do. I've been given a lot of credit for doing it. Look, we want Syria to succeed. It's been a mess for 10 years and much longer than that. It would not have been. These were very biting. You know, when you look at the sanctions, these were really...
Yeah, they were illegal, okay? There's a great video of Jeffrey Sachs just laying it all out. He's like, all this is illegal. Everything that the United States does is illegal, from the tariffs to the sanctions to the interventions around the world. And it's been this way for decades upon decades. So you have to laugh when people pearl clutch at the crimes of any other state when we're living in a U.S.-dominated hierarchy.
Brutal. And they would have, I would say, zero chance of success. And this way they have a chance.
So he's like, yeah, you know, it's funny that he's admitting that the Syrian sanctions the United States government has placed on Syria, which he is criminally liable for. He's like, yeah, they were brutal. Really just of a rare breed of sanctions there that just basically he's admitting, yeah, we were starving people. Probably bad.
So you're welcoming white South Afrikaners into the country as refugees when you closed off that door to a lot of other refugees from other parts of the world. What message does that send to those who say it isn't? Why is that fair?
Well, I think if I see people in distress, I don't care what color, what they look like,
I don't care what color they are as long as they're white. Because, you know, for decades, black South Afrikaners were completely, like, even though apartheid was, you know, had been ended formally in 1994, they still were isolated and were given barren lands. For example, all of the best property went to the Boer farmers, the white South Afrikaners. Now they're, you know, they haven't seen any real meaningful change in the way that their society is organized, so they're starting to demand. And they have leadership that demands that this property be expropriated. And what does a guy like Donald Trump do? He's giving them refugee status. And just the fact that he's like, well, I don't care if they're black or they're white. Well, clearly that has been, you know, your guiding principle on who are your enemies and who are your friends based on their skin color. I can't believe you just said that. You know, it doesn't matter if they're white or they're black, but they just so happen to be only white people that I help. Yeah, I know. Elon Musk is like, they're genociding the whites in South Africa. Because they said to the Boer. I mean, it's still this, it's like the same, like, condemn Hamas, because they said to Israel or something. Or from the river to the sea. And, you know, it should just be very revealing to people who aren't clued in on what's happening. Just the way that the political elite, the establishment, the capitalists, how they define their enemies, who's their friends, who's their enemies, and what violence is condemned and what violence is celebrated. As Parenti says, violence that maintains the privileged social relations of the political and economic elites is considered democracy, upholding democracy, maintaining democracy, whereas the violence that upends those social relations is deemed taboo. So that's all we see it day in and day out.
I think their size, their height, their eyes, I don't care. But I think that from all evidence, the farmers in South Africa are being treated brutally. And it's been reported, and nobody wants to cover it, but they happen to be white.
Yeah, they happen to be white. White South Africans own 80% of the land. So there can be no meaningful reparation. recompensation to the people that have been subjugated for all this time without land reform, without agrarian reform, without land expropriation. And so that hasn't happened in South Africa. But he wouldn't even acknowledge that. He just thinks that's woke for you to say that. These people are in power. There's no higher force that is morally good that can intervene and stop them or get them to tell the truth. So there's no need to talk about it because that's disadvantageous for capital accumulation.
We're black. I do the exact same thing, and we treat people very well.
Sure thing. Sure
When
thing.
we see there's a genocide going on, so if it's a genocide, that's terrible, and I happen to believe it could very well be. South Africa's out of control. And
The South African genocide of the whites is what he's saying. This guy in 2025, while Palestinians just today, it was the worst death toll since Israel broke its ceasefire in March, with 143 Palestinians savagely murdered by Israeli airstrikes in just the past 12 hours. And in the midst of all this, the unrelenting genocide in Palestine, this schmuck, this spineless little prick, wants to mention the G word and describe it to white land-owning elites who form a minority class of parasitic capitalists in South Africa of being the victims of genocide because their land is being expropriated from them, from a black majority, of whom has been subjugated and virtually enslaved by the white minority for centuries. Insane to me that he just said that.
it's been out of control for a long time, and the media doesn't report it. And I'm not looking for reporting because, believe me, it's easier for me not to do anything. It's a lot easier because I don't get nasty questions like that. But the fact is that we're about saving lives, and we're going to do that. So
It's about saving lives, right? But yet Israel can continue its genocide of the Palestinians. This man is a walking contradiction, completely hypocritical, no commitment to moral principles, though he loves to tout it as if he is. That really should be angering a lot of you to hear the President of the United States speak so coldly, so tone deaf about the one actual genocide that's happening under his watch, which he is completely responsible and culpable for.
made a home, and we'll make a home for other people that are treated badly, no matter what their color.
Will you go to the G20? Will you go to the G20 there?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
I'm really not
On
sure.
your ranch, has the U.S. given them a formal proposal? Has Steve Witkoff handed that over?
Yeah, they have a proposal, but more importantly, they know they have to move quickly. Something bad's going to happen. Thank you very
How's
much.
Tiffany doing? She's well. Everybody's good. Congratulations.
Congratulations on your grandson.
Well, now I'm upset.